The world ended at 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. Ethan was hunched over his laptop in his dorm room, fingers flying across the keyboard as he tried to finish a programming assignment due in 2 hours. The late autumn sunlight streamed through the grimy window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Outside, the campus quad was quiet, too quiet for a Tuesday. Most students were either in class or hiding from the unseasonably cold wind that had swept through the city that morning. He rubbed his eyes, the lines of code blurring before him. His dorm room was typical for a third-year computer science major. Textbooks stacked haphazardly on a cheap bookshelf, a half-eaten bag of chips on the desk, and a poster of some obscure indie game taped crookedly to the wall. The air smelled of stale coffee and desperation. That's when the blue light came. It started as a faint glow at the edge of his vision, like someone had turned on a massive television screen just outside his window. Ethan glanced up, thinking it might be some weird atmospheric phenomenon or a prank. Then the light intensified, flooding the room with an electric, cerulean brilliance that made his eyes water. He stumbled back from his desk, knocking over his coffee mug. The brown liquid spread across his notes like a stain of normalcy in a world suddenly gone mad. The light wasn't just bright. It felt physical, like water pressure building in his ears. A low hum vibrated through the floorboards, up through his feet, rattling his teeth. "What the hell?" he whispered, his voice swallowed by the growing noise. Through the window, he saw the blue wave expanding across the sky. It moved like liquid, swallowing clouds, buildings, everything in its path. Students on the quad below froze, pointing upward, their mouths open in silent screams. Then the wave hit them. Ethan watched in horror as a girl he recognized from his calculus class, Sarah, he thought her name was, suddenly stiffened. Blue light enveloped her body, and for a moment she seemed to glow from within. Then she collapsed to the ground, twitching. Panic surged through him. He scrambled for his phone, but the screen was dead. No, not dead. It was glowing with that same impossible blue light. He dropped it like it had burned him. That's when the pain hit. It started as a pressure behind his eyes, then exploded into a migraine so intense he cried out. Visions flashed through his mind. Numbers, symbols, interfaces that looked like something from a video game. Status screens, skill trees, health bars. It was like someone had downloaded an entire operating system directly into his brain. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. The pain lasted only seconds, but when it faded, something had changed. The world looked different. Sharper, more defined, and floating in the lower right corner of his vision was a translucent blue box. System initializing. Welcome to the System Apocalypse. Earth has been integrated into the Universal Gaming Network. All life forms granted RPG interfaces. Classes assigned based on aptitude and potential. Survival is now a game. Play well. Ethan stared at the text, his mind refusing to process what he was seeing. This had to be a hallucination. Some kind of mass hysteria event. Maybe someone had poisoned the water supply with a new designer drug. Then he heard the first scream. It came from the hallway outside his dorm room, a raw, terrified sound that cut through the eerie silence that had followed the blue wave. Ethan pushed himself to his feet, his legs trembling. He crept to the door and pressed his ear against the cheap wood. More screams, running footsteps, and something else, a wet, guttural sound that didn't belong to any human or animal he'd ever heard. "No, no, no, please," someone begged from down the hall. Then a sickening crunch. Silence. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. He backed away from the door, his mind racing. He needed to barricade himself in. The desk. He could push it against the door. But first, he needed to understand what was happening. He focused on the blue box in his vision. As if responding to his attention, it expanded, revealing a clean, minimalist interface. Ethan Reed. Level 1. Class, unassigned. Health, 100/100. Mana, 50/50ths. Strength, 8. Agility, 7. Intelligence, 12. Vitality, 9. Available stat points, 0. Skills, none. Inventory, empty. "This is insane," he muttered, reaching out a trembling hand as if he could touch the interface. His fingers passed through the holographic display. This can't be real. A crash from the hallway made him jump. Something heavy slammed against his door. The wood splintered around the lock. Ethan scrambled backward, his eyes darting around the room for a weapon. His baseball bat was propped in the corner. He joined an intramural team freshman year and never bothered to return the equipment. He grabbed it, his palms sweaty against the worn grip. The door shuddered again. More splintering. Through the growing crack, he caught a glimpse of something moving in the hallway. It was human-shaped, but wrong. The skin was gray and peeling. One arm hung at an unnatural angle, and floating above its head was a red tag. Decayed Zombie, Level 2. Oh God, Ethan breathed. The zombie slammed against the door one more time, and the lock gave way. The door swung inward, revealing the creature in full. It was wearing the tattered remains of a campus security uniform. Its eyes were milky white, fixed on Ethan with mindless hunger. A low groan escaped its lips as it shambled forward. Ethan raised the bat, his arms shaking. "Stay back," he shouted, knowing it was useless. The zombie didn't pause. It lunged, surprisingly fast for something that looked half-rotten. Instinct took over. Ethan swung the bat with all his strength. It connected with the zombie's shoulder with a sickening thud. The creature staggered but didn't fall. A red number floated up from the impact point. -12 HP. The zombie's health bar appeared above its head, showing it had lost about a quarter of its health. It growled and swiped at Ethan with claw-like hands. Ethan ducked, feeling the air whistle past his face. He backed toward his desk, his mind racing. He needed a plan. The bat wasn't enough. He needed something. Fire. Zombies were weak to fire in every game he'd ever played. His eyes fell on the small electric heater in the corner of the room. It was one of those cheap, dorm-approved models, with glowing red coils. Not exactly a flamethrower, but it might work. He feinted left, then dove right, rolling across the floor toward the heater. The zombie turned clumsily, its movements jerky and uncoordinated. Ethan grabbed the heater, yanking the cord from the wall. The coils were still glowing orange-hot. "Come on, you bastard," he whispered, holding the heater like a shield. The zombie charged. Ethan thrust the heater forward, pressing the hot coils against the creature's chest. The smell of burning flesh filled the room. The zombie screamed, a horrible, rasping sound, and stumbled back. More red numbers floated up. -18 HP. -22 HP. But it wasn't enough. The zombie still had about half its health, and now it was angry. Ethan's eyes darted to the interface, still hovering in his vision. There had to be something he could do. Some option, some setting. That's when he saw it. In the bottom corner of the interface, almost hidden by the transparency of the display, was a tiny symbol, a backtick. The key. The same key he used to open console commands in games when he was debugging his own programming projects. Without thinking, he reached out with his mind, not his hand, and pressed it. The interface flickered. For a terrifying moment, Ethan thought he'd broken it. Then a new window opened, overlaying the standard RPG interface. This one was different. It looked like a command prompt. Black background, green text. At the top, in simple ASCII art. Admin console, debug mode. Warning, unauthorized access detected. Access level, partial. Available commands limited to local variables. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. An admin console. In the middle of the apocalypse. While a zombie was trying to eat him. The zombie recovered and lunged again. Ethan barely dodged, feeling its rotting fingers brush against his arm. A notification popped up. Minor scratch, 5 HP damage. Status, infected. No time to panic. He focused on the console. What could he do? Local variables. That meant things in his immediate area. The zombie. The heater. Himself. His programming knowledge kicked in. Variables had names. Properties. He needed to find the zombie's properties. Scan target, he thought at the console. Text scrolled across the black screen. Target, decayed zombie. Level 2. HP, 48/100. Weaknesses. Fire, X1.5. Holy, X2.0. Resistances. Poison, X0.5. Cold, X0.75. Status effects, none. Fire weakness was 1.5. That meant fire did 50% more damage. Could he change that? Edit target.weakness.fire. The console responded. Enter new value. Ethan didn't have time to be careful. He needed this thing dead now. 2.0. Value updated. Fire weakness multiplier set to 2.0. The zombie was almost on him again. Ethan grabbed the heater, which had cooled slightly, but was still hot enough to burn. He shoved it against the zombie's face. This time, the effect was dramatic. The creature's head erupted in flames. Not just smoldering, proper, roaring fire that consumed its features in seconds. The numbers that floated up were different. -45 HP. -48 HP. The zombie's health bar plummeted to 0. It staggered, made one last grasping motion toward Ethan, then collapsed into a pile of ash and charred bone. Combat ended. Experience gained. 50 XP. Level up. Ethan Reed is now level 2. +5 stat points. +10 health. +5 mana. Ethan stared at the smoldering remains, then at the console still open in his vision. His hands were shaking so badly, he almost dropped the heater. He'd done that. He'd changed the rules. Not by being stronger or faster or smarter, but by editing the code of reality itself. A slow, giddy laugh bubbled up from his chest. It sounded slightly hysterical even to his own ears. He had an admin console in the apocalypse. He could cheat. Then the reality of his situation crashed down on him. The screams from the hallway had stopped, but he could hear other noises now. More of those wet, guttural sounds. More zombies. Maybe worse things. He needed to get out of here. But where could he go? As if in answer, a new notification appeared, this one system-wide. The text was bold, red, and impossible to ignore. System announcement. All survivors must report to designated safe zones within 72 hours. Safe zones marked on minimap. Failure to comply will result in hostile designation. Hostiles may be hunted by other players for bounty. A minimap flickered into existence in the upper left corner of Ethan's vision. It showed a top-down view of the campus, with several blue markers indicating safe zones. The closest was about 3 miles away, a military base that had been converted into what the map labeled Orion Academy for the awakened. Ethan looked around his dorm room. The shattered door. The zombie ash on the floor. His half-finished programming assignment still open on his laptop, now completely irrelevant. He had an admin console. He could cheat, but he needed to be smart about it. If the system was monitoring things, and that announcement suggested it was, then using his powers recklessly could get him noticed. Marked as a hostile. Hunted. He closed the admin console with a thought. The standard RPG interface returned. He allocated his new stat points almost automatically, 3 to intelligence, 2 to agility. His class was still unassigned, but that could wait. He packed a backpack with what little useful stuff he had. Some protein bars from his desk drawer, a water bottle, a first aid kit from under his sink. He hesitated, then grabbed his laptop too. Old habits died hard. At the doorway, he paused, looking back at the room that had been his home for 3 years. It felt like a lifetime ago. Then he stepped into the hallway, bat in hand, the minimap glowing in his vision, and the secret of the admin console burning in his mind like a stolen fire. The game had begun, and Ethan planned to rewrite the rules. The journey to Orion Academy took 3 days of cautious travel through a world transformed. Ethan kept to back roads, using his admin console sparingly, just enough to avoid detection by roaming monsters. He'd tweak a wolf's aggression radius by 0.5 meters, or subtly increase his own stamina regeneration by 10% for an hour. Each time, he felt a thrill of power, followed by a cold dread. The console was a secret he couldn't afford to reveal. On the morning of the 4th day, he crested a hill and saw it. Orion Academy, a sprawling fortress of gleaming white stone and reinforced steel, nestled in a valley surrounded by newly erected energy barriers. Blue light shimmered around its perimeter, a visible manifestation of the system's protection. Towers pierced the sky, and banners bearing the Academy's emblem, a stylized constellation, fluttered in the wind. Survivors streamed toward the main gates, a ragged procession of the awakened, their classes displayed above their heads in floating, semi-transparent text. Ethan adjusted his own interface, setting his class to D-rank survivor, a generic, unremarkable designation he'd fabricated using the console's edit_display command. Keep it simple, he muttered to himself, his breath fogging in the chill air. Blend in, learn the rules, and don't draw attention. The gates loomed ahead, manned by guards in polished armor, their classes reading B-rank sentinels. One of them, a woman with sharp eyes, scanned the crowd. Form a line. Registration begins in 10 minutes. Have your interfaces ready for verification. Ethan joined the queue, his heart pounding. Around him, conversations buzzed with excitement and fear. I heard they're segregating by rank, a young man whispered. SS ranks get private quarters, D ranks get barracks. Another voice, louder and brimming with arrogance, cut through the murmur. Of course they do. The strong deserve privilege. Ethan turned to see a group of 3 youths, all clad in expensive-looking combat gear. Their class displays glowed with golden letters: SS rank Blade Master, SS rank Arcane Mage, and SS rank Shadow Stalker. The speaker was the Blade Master, a tall boy with chiseled features and a smirk that didn't reach his cold eyes. He glanced at Ethan's display and snorted. D rank? You're lucky to be alive, peasant. Don't get in our way. Ethan forced a neutral expression, biting back a retort. Inside, his mind raced. Arrogant bastard. But he's right. In this world, rank is everything. Unless you have a way to cheat. He resisted the urge to open his console and tweak the boy's charisma to 0. Not yet. Not here. The line moved forward. At the registration desk, a stern-faced teacher with a rank administrator above her head directed Ethan to a scanning device. Place your hand here. The system will verify your class and stats. Ethan complied, his palms sweating. The device hummed, and a blue light washed over him. For a terrifying second, he feared it might detect the console, but the interface merely flickered, confirming his fabricated D-rank status. Ethan, D-rank survivor. Assigned to Barracks Sector 7. Proceed to the courtyard for aptitude testing. The teacher handed him a data crystal. This contains the Academy's rules and your schedule. Don't lose it. Ethan nodded, relief flooding him. He passed through the gates into a vast courtyard, where hundreds of new arrivals milled about. The air crackled with energy, literal energy, as some students practiced minor spells or displayed flashy abilities. He saw a girl summon a flame in her palm, and a boy phase through a wall momentarily. The SS rank clan heirs held court in the center, surrounded by admirers. Look at them, a voice said beside him. Ethan turned to see a lanky boy with C-rank scout above his head. They act like they own the place already. Name's Leo. Ethan, he replied, shaking the offered hand. And yeah, they do seem full of themselves. Leo grinned. Stick with me. I've got a feeling we low ranks need to watch each other's backs. Before Ethan could respond, a gong sounded, and the same A-rank teacher from registration stepped onto a raised platform. Attention, all new students. Form groups of 10 for the initial aptitude test. This is a simple sparring assessment to gauge your combat readiness. Pair up with someone of similar rank. Ethan exchanged a glance with Leo. Guess we're partners. They joined a cluster of D and C ranks, but their group was quickly approached by the SS rank Blade Master from earlier, whose nameplate now read Kale. He swaggered over, flanked by his mage and stalker friends. I'll take this one, Kale said, pointing at Ethan. Let's see what a D rank can really do. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Leo tensed. He's just trying to show off. You don't have to accept. Ethan's mind worked furiously. Refusing would mark him as weak, but fighting honestly against an SS rank was suicide. Then he remembered the console. A plan formed, cold and precise. I accept, he said, his voice steady. Kale's smirk widened. Good. At least you have some spine. They moved to a designated sparring circle, marked by glowing lines on the ground. The teacher watched from the sidelines, her expression unreadable. Other students gathered to watch, their faces a mix of curiosity and pity. Begin, the teacher called. Kale didn't hesitate. He drew a gleaming sword from a spatial inventory, a system-granted ability, and lunged, his movements a blur of enhanced speed. Ethan barely dodged, feeling the wind of the blade pass his cheek. His heart hammered. Now, he thought. With a mental command, he accessed the admin console. The familiar debug interface overlay his vision, lines of code scrolling. He targeted Kale's stat block, found agility, 150, and typed, set_stat agility 0.1 duration 3. The command executed silently. In mid-lunge, Kale's body seemed to freeze. His coordination vanished. His feet tangled, and he stumbled, his momentum carrying him forward uncontrollably. With a comical yelp, he face-planted into the hard stone of the courtyard, his sword clattering away. The impact was loud, a solid thud that echoed in the sudden silence. For 3 seconds, Kale lay there dazed. Then, as the debuff expired, he scrambled up, his face flushed with rage and humiliation. You? What did you do? Ethan raised his hands, feigning innocence. I didn't do anything. You tripped. Laughter erupted from the onlookers, especially the lower-ranked students. Kale's friends rushed to his side, but he shoved them away. This isn't over, D-rank, he spat, his eyes burning with hatred. I'll make you pay for this. The teacher stepped forward, her gaze sharp. Enough. Kale, control yourself. Ethan, come here. Ethan approached, his pulse racing. Had she seen something? The teacher studied him for a long moment, her eyes narrowing slightly. Your reaction time was unusual for a D-rank, almost as if you anticipated his move. Just luck, ma'am, Ethan said, keeping his voice humble. She didn't look convinced, but she nodded. Very well. Assessment complete. Both of you, return to your groups. As Ethan walked back to Leo, he felt the weight of stares. Some were amused, others suspicious. Leo clapped him on the shoulder. That was amazing. How'd you do it? Like I said, luck, Ethan replied, but inside, he was calculating. The debuff had worked perfectly, subtle, untraceable. Yet, the teacher's look lingered in his mind. Was she just observant, or did she sense the console's interference? The rest of the testing passed in a blur. Ethan paired with Leo for simple drills, using minor, undetectable buffs to his own reflexes to perform adequately without standing out. By the end, they were both assigned to basic combat training classes, starting the next day. As the students dispersed to their barracks, Ethan found himself walking alone through the academy's corridors. The walls were lined with holographic displays showing rankings and announcements. He paused at one, seeing Kale's name already near the top of the leaderboard. He won't forget this, Ethan thought, and neither will that teacher. He reached Barracks Sector 7, a Spartan dormitory with rows of bunk beds. Leo was already there, claiming a bottom bunk. Home sweet home, he said wryly. Ethan took the bunk above, stowing his meager belongings. As he lay down, he opened his console again, reviewing the logs. No errors, no alerts. The system hadn't detected his edit. But the memory of the teacher's suspicious look gnawed at him. Was she part of something bigger? Or just a keen observer? Outside, the academy's energy barriers hummed, a constant reminder of the new world's dangers. Ethan closed his eyes, planning his next moves. He needed to learn more about the system, about Orion Academy, and about how far his console could go without drawing attention. Kale's vow of revenge echoed in his mind, a tangible threat. But for now, he had survived his first test, both the spar and the secret use of his power. The chapter ended with Ethan drifting into a fitful sleep, the console interface glowing faintly in his mind's eye, and the image of the teacher's scrutinizing gaze haunting his dreams. The morning after his humiliating encounter with Kale, Ethan woke to the sound of a system chime echoing through the Orion Academy barracks. Blue holographic text floated before his eyes. Daily training session, 8 to 12 o'clock. Location, Eastern Training Grounds. Objective, defeat practice monsters for material drops. Ethan rubbed the sleep from his eyes, the memory of yesterday's sparring test still fresh. He'd pushed his luck with the admin console, setting Kale's agility to near zero for those 3 crucial seconds. The look on the arrogant clan heir's face, first confusion, then rage, had been satisfying. But the teacher's lingering gaze afterward had sent a chill down Ethan's spine. He needed to be more careful. He dressed in the standard academy uniform, dark gray tactical gear with the Orion emblem on the shoulder, and made his way through the fortress-like corridors. The academy was a marvel of system-enhanced architecture, walls that shimmered with protective runes, floating platforms that served as bridges between towers, and everywhere, the hum of energy that powered this new world. The Eastern Training Grounds sprawled across what had once been a university football field. Now it was a patchwork of simulated environments, a forest sector with pixelated trees, a rocky canyon zone, and an urban ruin area where crumbling buildings served as cover. Dozens of students were already there, their classes and ranks displayed above their heads in glowing text. Ethan kept his own interface minimal. Ethan, level 8, D rank, survivor. He spotted Kale across the field, surrounded by his usual entourage of elite students. Their ranks glittered with S and SS designations. Kale's own SS rank, Stormblade, title seemed to pulse with arrogant energy. Their eyes met briefly, and Kale's expression darkened before he turned away, speaking in low tones to his followers. "Better watch your back," a voice said beside him. Ethan turned to find a girl about his age with sharp green eyes and dark hair tied in a practical braid. Her interface read, Maya, level 9, C rank, scout. She wore light leather armor and carried a pair of daggers at her hips. "I saw what happened yesterday," Maya continued, her voice low. "Kale doesn't forget insults, especially not public ones." "I didn't do anything," Ethan said, keeping his tone neutral. "He just tripped." Maya's eyes narrowed slightly. "Right. And I'm the system administrator. Look, a bunch of us low-rankers are forming a study group. Strength in numbers and all that. You interested?" Ethan hesitated. Joining a group meant more eyes on him, more chances for someone to notice when he used the console. But going solo would make him more suspicious. And Maya seemed sharp, maybe too sharp. "Sure," he said finally. "Why not?" Maya led him to a corner of the training grounds where 5 other students waited. Their ranks were all D or C. A healer named Liam, a tank called Jonas, 2 damage dealers, Sophia and Leo, and Maya as their scout. They introduced themselves with the awkward formality of people still learning to navigate this new social hierarchy. "We're targeting the forest sector today," Maya said, pulling up a holographic map. "The practice monsters there are wood sprites, level 5 to 10. They drop forest essence, which we can trade for basic gear upgrades." As the group moved toward the simulated forest, Ethan discreetly pressed the grave accent key on his mental interface. The admin console appeared, a transparent overlay only he could see. Lines of debug code scrolled past. Location, Eastern Training Grounds, Forest Sector. Active entities, 47. Wood Sprite, Practice, Level Variance, 5 to 10. Drop table loaded. Ethan focused on the drop rates. The standard chance for forest essence was 15%. With a thought, he edited the local variable. Wood_sprite_drop_8 equals 0.15-0.45. He limited the change to a 50-meter radius around his position. The console flickered briefly, a warning appearing. Variable edit logged, local scope. He dismissed it. The system tracked everything, but as long as he kept changes small and localized, they should blend into normal statistical variance. They entered the forest. The air smelled of pine and ozone. Wood sprites appeared as humanoid figures made of bark and leaves, their movements jerky like poorly rendered game characters. The group fell into formation, Jonas at the front with his shield, the damage dealers flanking, Maya scouting ahead, and Liam ready with healing spells. Ethan hung back, playing his role as the average survivor. He fired basic energy bolts from the Academy-issued wand, making sure his damage numbers stayed within D-rank expectations. But every time a wood sprite fell near him, it shimmered and dissolved into loot. First kill, Forest Essence X1. Second, Forest Essence X1. Third, Forest Essence X2. Whoa, Leo said after their 5th encounter. "Ethan, you're on fire today. That's 3 essence drops in a row. Just lucky," Ethan said, shrugging. Maya watched him, her expression unreadable. "The drop rate's supposed to be 1 in 7. You've gotten essence from every kill you've landed the final blow on." "Statistical anomaly," Ethan said, forcing a smile. "The system's random number generator must be favoring me today." They continued through the forest. Ethan carefully rotated who got the killing blows, making sure the others got drops too, though his own haul remained disproportionately high. By the time they cleared their section, he had collected 12 forest essence crystals, while the others averaged 3 or 4 each. "We should head back," Jonas said, checking the time. "The afternoon simulation starts in 30 minutes. As they walked toward the central arena, Maya fell into step beside Ethan. "You know," she said quietly, "in the old world, I was studying statistics. Before the apocalypse." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "Oh, the probability of you getting 12 drops from 15 kills, with a theoretical drop rate of 15%. She did the calculation in her head. Approximately 0.0003%. That's not just lucky. That's statistically impossible. Maybe the system's drop tables are bugged," Ethan said, keeping his voice casual. Maybe, Maya said, but her eyes said she didn't believe it. The simulation arena was a circular chamber with holographic projectors lining the walls. Today's exercise was a team capture the flag scenario. 8 teams of 6 would compete, with the elite students, Kale's group included, forming 2 of the teams. The rest were mixed-rank groups like Ethan's. A teacher stood at the center, her interface identifying her as Instructor Valeria level. Rank, unknown. She was the same teacher who had watched Ethan suspiciously yesterday. Today's simulation will test your tactical coordination, Valeria announced. Each team has a flag at their base. Capture an opponent's flag and return it to your base to score. You have 1 hour. Combat is simulated. Injuries will register as pain feedback, but won't cause actual damage. Begin. The arena shimmered, and suddenly they were in a ruined cityscape. Crumbling skyscrapers rose around them, holographic but convincing enough that Ethan could feel the grit of virtual dust underfoot. Their team's flag glowed blue on a platform behind them. Maya took charge immediately. Jonas, guard the flag with Liam. Sophia and Leo, you're on perimeter defense. Ethan, you're with me. We'll scout and look for opportunities. They moved through the ruins. Ethan could see other teams' flags glowing in the distance. Red, green, yellow. Kale's team had a gold flag, positioned arrogantly in an open plaza rather than hidden. There, Maya whispered, pointing. Silver team is moving toward the green flag. If we time it right, we can hit their base while they're distracted. But as they watched, Kale's team descended on the silver team like predators. Kale moved with impossible speed, lightning crackling around his blades. His teammates, all S ranks or higher, made short work of the silver team. The entire engagement lasted less than 20 seconds. They're too strong, Maya muttered. We need to avoid direct confrontation. Ethan's mind raced. His team couldn't win against Kale's through normal means. But he had other tools. He activated the admin console, careful to keep his expression neutral. Scanning combatants. Team Gold, Kale, average accuracy, 92%. Local variable edit available, targeting _ algorithm. He couldn't lower their stats directly, that would be too obvious. But he could tweak the simulation's targeting algorithms. With a thought, he edited. Team _gold _ accuracy _ modifier equals 1.0-0.7. He set the duration for 15 minutes and limited the effect to a 100-meter radius around his current position. The console flickered again, this time with a more serious warning. Anomaly detected in simulation parameters. He dismissed it quickly. Change of plan, Ethan said. I have an idea. Maya looked at him suspiciously but nodded. What? Kale's team is overconfident. They're going after every flag they see. What if we let them take ours? That's suicide. Hear me out. While they're retrieving our flag, we hit their base. Jonas and Liam can put up a defense, just enough to slow them down. You and I go for their flag. Sophia and Leo create a diversion. Maya considered. It's risky. If they get back before we score. They won't, Ethan said, more confidently than he felt. They returned to their base and explained the plan. The others looked doubtful, but no one had a better idea. Minutes later, Kale's team appeared at the edge of their territory, moving with the casual arrogance of predators. Remember, Ethan whispered to the group. Don't engage fully. Just delay them. As Kale's team charged, Ethan and Maya slipped away through a back route. They moved through alleys and over collapsed buildings, circling toward the golden flag. Ethan kept one eye on his mental map, tracking Kale's progress. The fight at their base was going poorly, as intended. Jonas's shield flickered under assault. Liam's healing spells couldn't keep up. But something was wrong. Kale's attacks kept missing. Lightning bolts that should have struck true went wide. Sword swings that should have connected glanced off at the last second. What's happening? Maya whispered as they reached the edge of the plaza where the golden flag stood. I don't know, Ethan lied. Maybe the simulation is glitching. They made their move. 2 of Kale's teammates had been left to guard the flag, both S ranks. Maya engaged one, her daggers a blur. Ethan faced the other, a hulking warrior with an axe. Ethan fought defensively, letting the warrior press him back. He needed to make this look convincing. When an opening appeared, he didn't take it. When the warrior overextended, he didn't counter. He was playing the D-rank survivor, barely holding his own. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Maya disarm her opponent with a clever feint. She was good, better than her C rank suggested. Now, she shouted. Ethan feigned a stumble, drawing the warrior's attack. As the axe came down, he rolled aside. A move that should have been too slow, but the warrior's swing was slightly off, the axe head catching on virtual rubble. Ethan came up running, sprinting past the off-balance guard toward the flag. His hand closed around the golden pole. The flag dissolved into light, reappearing as a smaller version in his inventory. Flag captured. Team Gold. Retreat. Maya yelled. They ran. Behind them, the warriors gave chase, but their movements were sluggish, uncoordinated. Arrows fired by one went wide. A spell cast by the other fizzled before reaching them. They reached their base just as Kale's team was finishing off their defenders. Kale stood over Jonas, his blade at the tank's throat. He looked up as Ethan and Maya approached, his eyes widening when he saw the golden flag in Ethan's hand. Impossible, Kale snarled. Team Blue scores 1 point. The simulation ended. The ruined city faded, replaced by the sterile white of the arena. Students materialized around them, some looking confused, others frustrated. Kale stormed toward Ethan. How did you do that? Do what? Ethan kept his voice level. My team. Our accuracy was off. The simulation was glitching. Instructor Valeria approached, her expression unreadable. The simulation parameters were within normal variance. Kale, your team became overconfident and made tactical errors. But, enough, Valeria said sharply. Team Blue wins the exercise. Dismissed. As the students filed out, Ethan felt Maya's eyes on him. He turned to meet her gaze. Statistical anomaly? She asked quietly. Before he could answer, she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that only he could hear. You're not what you seem, are you? Then she turned and walked away, leaving Ethan standing alone in the emptying arena, the weight of her words settling over him like a shroud. The announcement came at dawn, echoing through the Academy's stone corridors with the crisp authority of a system broadcast. Ethan stood in the crowded mess hall, a bowl of nutrient paste forgotten in his hands, as the holographic display above flickered to life. Headmaster Valerius's stern face appeared, his voice carrying the weight of command. Attention all second-year initiates, he began, his eyes scanning the room as if he could see each of them. A guild dungeon has manifested in the Whispering Caves, 3 kilometers east. Scans confirm it contains legendary tier loot, specifically the Amulet of Ethelred, an artifact that grants plus 50 to all stats and immunity to poison. This is a rare opportunity. All student teams are required to participate in the raid. Pairings will be randomized by the system. A murmur swept through the hall. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. Legendary loot. The kind of thing that could change everything, or draw far too much attention. Around him, students buzzed with excitement and anxiety. He spotted Kale across the room, the clan heir already surrounded by his usual entourage of elites, their SS rank class insignias gleaming on their uniforms. Kale caught Ethan's eye and smirked, a silent challenge hanging in the air. Maya nudged Ethan's arm, her scout's keen gaze missing nothing. Random pairings, huh? Bet you a rare material we get stuck with Kale's team. Her voice was low, but Ethan heard the tension in it. Since their conversation after the simulation, she'd been watching him more closely, though she hadn't pressed further about his luck. Ethan forced a casual shrug. Maybe we'll get lucky. He didn't mention the admin console tucked away in his mind, accessible with a mental tap of the grave accent key he'd discovered weeks ago. He'd been practicing in secret, tweaking minor variables during training sessions, lowering a practice dummy's defense by 0.5%, increasing a drop chance by a fraction. Small, undetectable changes that added up. But a dungeon raid? That was a different scale entirely. Later that morning, the pairings appeared on the central bulletin board. Ethan's stomach dropped as he read the list. Team 7, Ethan, Maya, and 2 other low-rankers from their study group. Leo, a sturdy but slow guardian, and Sarah, a nervous healer, paired with Team 3, Kale's elite squad, all A rank or higher. A collective groan rose from his teammates. Leo muttered, great. Just great. They'll hog all the glory and leave us as cannon fodder. Kale sauntered over, his armor polished to a mirror shine. Looks like we're stuck with the D-rank charity case, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. Try not to die too quickly. It'd be a waste of a healer's mana. His team laughed, a sound like sharpened steel. Ethan kept his expression neutral, but inside, his mind was already racing. The admin console hovered at the edge of his consciousness, a silent promise of control. The dungeon entrance loomed before them by midday, a jagged maw in the side of a moss-covered cliff, pulsing with an eerie blue light that matched the system's interface. The air smelled of damp stone and ozone. Instructor Thorne, a grizzled veteran with a scar across his jaw, briefed them at the threshold. The Whispering Caves are a level 20 dungeon. Boss is a stone golem, immune to physical attacks until its core is exposed. Work together, watch each other's backs, and for system's sake, don't trigger any traps. He eyed Kale's team pointedly. No solo heroics. Kale waved a dismissive hand. We'll clear it in under an hour. The D-ranks can stay back and loot the scraps. He led his team into the darkness without a backward glance. Ethan exchanged a look with Maya. Her eyes were narrowed, calculating. Stay close, she whispered. And Ethan, whatever you did in the simulation, be careful. The caves unfolded in a labyrinth of twisting tunnels, lit by bioluminescent fungi that cast long, dancing shadows. The walls seemed to whisper, a faint echo of ancient magic. Kale's team moved ahead with practiced efficiency, cutting down minor cave spiders and bats with flashy skills that lit up the passageways. Ethan's group trailed behind, collecting minor loot, a few copper coins, some spider silk. Leo grumbled about the elites taking all the kills, but Ethan was barely listening. He pulled up his admin console with a mental command. The familiar debug menu appeared, a translucent overlay on his vision. It was limited. He couldn't change global rules or grant himself instant levels, but the local variables were his playground. He scanned the environment. The dungeon's code scrolled past, monster spawn rates, trap triggers, loot tables. And there, deep in the data, was the boss entity, Stone Golem, level 25. Its targeting parameters were a complex algorithm, prioritizing threats based on damage output and proximity. An idea began to form. A dangerous, thrilling idea. They reached the boss chamber after an hour of navigation, a vast cavern with a high, stalactite-studded ceiling. In the center stood the stone golem, a hulking mass of rock and magic, 15 feet tall, with glowing runes carved into its body. Its core, a pulsating red crystal, was embedded in its chest. Kale's team fanned out, their weapons ready. All right, charity case, Kale called over his shoulder. You lot stay back and heal if needed. This is our show. Ethan nodded, feigning compliance. But as Kale's team engaged, launching a barrage of fire spells and lightning strikes, Ethan's fingers twitched. He accessed the admin console, focusing on the golem's targeting algorithm. The code was intricate, but he'd practiced on smaller monsters. He isolated the variable, target priority _ threat assessment. With a subtle mental edit, he tweaked it. Not much, just enough to skew the calculations. He set a modifier. Ignore damage output equals true for all entities except those with the tag, Team 3 _ elite. Then he added a weight multiplier. Proximity weight equals 10x for the same tag. The effect was immediate. The golem, which had been turning toward Leo who'd accidentally stepped too close, froze. Its glowing eyes locked onto Kale. With a roar that shook the cavern, it lunged, ignoring the fireball that splashed harmlessly against its side. Kale's eyes widened. What the? It's aggroed on me. Tanks, taunt it. But the golem's fists came down, crushing the ground where Kale had been standing. The elites scrambled, their formation breaking into chaos. Maya grabbed Ethan's arm, her grip tight. What did you do? She hissed, her voice barely audible over the din of combat. Nothing visible, Ethan whispered back, his heart pounding. He watched as the golem pursued Kale relentlessly, its attacks focused solely on the elite team. Stones rained from the ceiling as it smashed pillars. Kale's healer, a girl with silver hair, was frantically casting barriers, but the golem shattered them with each blow. Ethan's team stood at the edge of the chamber, untouched. Leo stared, open-mouthed. Why isn't it attacking us? Luck, Ethan said, the lie smooth on his tongue. But inside, he felt a surge of power. This was what the admin console offered, not just strength, but control. He could shape the battlefield like a puppeteer pulling strings. The battle raged for 20 minutes. Kale's team was skilled, but the golem's single-minded assault wore them down. They burned through mana potions and stamina boosts. Finally, with a coordinated strike, Kale managed to expose the core. "Now? Hit it," he screamed. A combined attack of ice and force shattered the crystal. The golem crumbled into a pile of rubble, and the system chime echoed in the cavern. Boss defeated. Legendary loot available. Kale slumped against a wall, breathing heavily. His team was battered, armor dented, faces smeared with dirt. Ethan's group stepped forward. The loot chest materialized in a shower of light, an ornate, iron-bound box. Kale pushed himself up, his eyes blazing. "That's ours. We did all the work." Instructor Thorne's voice crackled through a communication crystal. "All teams, report. Loot distribution is per Academy rules, shared among the paired group based on contribution. System logs will verify." Ethan didn't wait. He walked to the chest and opened it. Inside, the amulet of Ethelred gleamed, along with piles of gold and rare crafting materials. He picked up the amulet, feeling its power thrum against his skin. Plus 50 to all stats. It was intoxicating. He handed it to Maya. "For safekeeping." Kale stormed over, his fists clenched. "You cheated," he spat, his voice trembling with rage. "That golem shouldn't have ignored you. I saw it. You didn't even fight. You just stood there." His team gathered behind him, their expressions dark. Ethan met his gaze, keeping his own voice calm. "The system paired us, Kale. Maybe it wanted to teach you about teamwork. We're all part of the same group." He gestured to the loot. "According to rules, we share it. Unless you have proof of cheating?" Kale's face flushed. He had none, just a gut feeling and the humiliation of being outmaneuvered. The system logs would show nothing unusual. Ethan's edits were too subtle, buried in local variables that reset after the encounter. After a tense silence, Kale turned away. "This isn't over," he muttered. "I'll be watching you, Ethan. Everyone will." As they exited the dungeon into the afternoon light, the amulet heavy in Maya's pack, Ethan felt a mix of triumph and unease. He'd won, but Kale's accusation hung in the air like a storm cloud. And in the back of his mind, the admin console flickered, a tool of immense power, and a secret growing harder to keep. The morning after the dungeon raid dawned with an unnatural stillness over Orion Academy. Ethan stood at the window of his dormitory, watching as the first pale light of day filtered through the reinforced glass. The amulet of Ethelred lay heavy in his pocket, its smooth surface cool against his thigh, a constant reminder of yesterday's victory and the dangerous secret that had made it possible. His interface screen flickered to life without prompting, displaying the usual daily quests and notifications. But today, there was something new, a system-wide announcement in bold crimson text. Investigation notice. Anomalies detected in dungeon raid logs. All participants report to auditorium for review at 0800 hours. ***. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He'd known this might happen, had even prepared for it. But seeing the words made his palms sweat. He glanced at the clock on his interface. 7:15. 45 minutes until he'd be sitting under the Academy's scrutiny, with Kale's accusations still hanging in the air like poison. He dressed quickly, his movements mechanical. The Academy uniform, dark gray with silver trim, felt like a costume today. As he pulled on the jacket, his fingers brushed against the hidden key on his interface bracelet. The admin console. His salvation and his potential doom. "Stay calm," he told himself. "You planned for this. You can handle it." But the mantra did little to settle the churning in his gut. The walk to the auditorium was a study in tension. Students clustered in hallways, their whispers carrying through the polished stone corridors. Heard Kale's team barely made it out alive. That low-rank group got the amulet? Impossible. Systems investigating. Must be cheating. Ethan kept his head down, his expression carefully neutral. He spotted Maya waiting near the auditorium doors, her scout's keen eyes scanning the crowd. When she saw him, she gave a slight nod, not friendly, but acknowledging their shared predicament. "They're taking this seriously," she murmured as he approached. "Professor Vance is leading the investigation. He's brought in 2 system liaisons." Ethan's stomach tightened. System liaisons were humans with special permissions to interface directly with the Academy's monitoring systems. They could access logs, replay events, even trace skill usage down to the millisecond. "Do they have proof?" he asked, keeping his voice low. Maya's eyes narrowed slightly. Not yet, but Kale's been shouting about it since dawn. His father's clan has influence here. Before Ethan could respond, the auditorium doors swung open. Professor Vance stood at the entrance, his stern face unreadable. All dungeon participants inside. Now, the auditorium was cavernous, with tiered seating rising toward a vaulted ceiling where holographic projections of the Academy's crest rotated slowly. At the front, a raised platform held 3 figures, Professor Vance and 2 others Ethan didn't recognize, a man and a woman in sleek, featureless gray uniforms that marked them as system liaisons. Kale and his team occupied the front row, their postures radiating arrogance even now. Kale caught Ethan's eye and smirked, mouthing a single word, "Cheater." Ethan ignored him, taking a seat near the back with Maya and the rest of their group. Leo, their tank, was fidgeting nervously, while Sarah, their healer, had her eyes closed as if in prayer. "Attention!" Professor Vance's voice boomed through the chamber, enhanced by some acoustic skill. "As you're aware, yesterday's dungeon raid produced unusual results. The system has flagged several anomalies in the combat logs. We will be reviewing these events today to ensure the integrity of Academy operations." The female system liaison stepped forward. Her movements were precise, almost mechanical. "I am Liaison 7. My colleague is Liaison 12. We have accessed the dungeon's event logs from yesterday's raid. We will be projecting key moments for review." She gestured, and the air above the platform shimmered. A 3-dimensional reconstruction of the dungeon's boss chamber materialized, the stone golem frozen mid-roar, Kale's team positioned for attack, Ethan's group hanging back near the entrance. Beginning playback at timestamp 14 hours 32 minutes and 17 seconds, Liaison 12 announced. The scene sprang to life. Ethan watched himself in the projection, looking small and insignificant compared to Kale's glittering team. He saw the moment he'd activated his console, just a subtle twitch of his fingers against his interface bracelet, invisible to anyone watching. In the projection, the stone golem suddenly pivoted, ignoring Ethan's group completely to focus entirely on Kale's team. Its attacks became more precise, more relentless. Kale's warriors scrambled, their formations breaking as they tried to adapt. "Pause," Professor Vance said. "Liaison 7, highlight the anomaly." The projection froze. Liaison 7 pointed to lines of code that appeared beside the golem's avatar. At this exact moment, the boss's targeting parameters were altered. The standard algorithm weights threat generation, proximity, and damage output. Here, those weights were overridden by an external command. Kale stood up, pointing dramatically at Ethan. "There. I told you. He did something." "Sit down, Mr. Thorne," Professor Vance said coldly. "We have no evidence pointing to any individual yet." But Ethan's heart was hammering against his ribs. They'd found the alteration. Of course they had. The system logged everything. He'd known this would happen, had planned for it. But seeing the evidence laid bare before the entire Academy was another thing entirely. "Continue," Vance said. The playback resumed, showing the rest of the battle. Ethan's group moving in to claim the loot, while Kale's team struggled. The amulet being retrieved. The boss's defeat. When it ended, the auditorium was silent. The alteration lasted exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds, Liaison 12 said. Then the targeting parameters reverted to standard values. No further anomalies were detected in the logs. Could this be a system glitch? Professor Vance asked. Liaison 7's expression didn't change. The probability is 0.003%. The alteration was too precise, too targeted to be random. It was a deliberate modification. Kale couldn't contain himself any longer. "It was him," he shouted, jabbing a finger toward Ethan. "He was the only one who benefited. My team nearly died, and has walked away with legendary loot." All eyes turned to Ethan. He could feel the weight of their stares, the suspicion blooming in the room. Maya shifted beside him, her posture tense. "Ethan, right," Professor Vance said, his voice echoing in the sudden quiet. "Do you have anything to say?" Ethan stood slowly, forcing his hands to remain steady at his sides. "I didn't cheat, Professor. We won through strategy and timing. Kale's team engaged first, drawing aggro. We waited for our moment." "Strategy?" Kale sneered. "You're D rank. Your strategy shouldn't work against a boss that outlevels you by 20. Enough, Vance cut in. Liaisons. Is there any trace of external manipulation in the participants' skill logs? Liaison. 12 consulted a holographic display that appeared before him. Scanning. No unusual skill activations detected from any participant. All mana expenditures match registered abilities. No hidden skills or items flagged. Ethan allowed himself a small breath. He'd been careful. The admin console didn't register as a skill. It was something else entirely, a backdoor into the system itself. As long as he hadn't left digital fingerprints. But then Liaison 7 spoke again. However, we are detecting residual code fragments in the dungeon's memory buffer. They appear to be cleanup routines. Someone attempted to erase traces of the modification. The air left Ethan's lungs. Cleanup routines. He'd run them last night, sitting in his dorm room, fingers flying across the console's interface. He'd thought he'd been thorough. He'd thought he'd covered his tracks. Can you trace these routines? Vance asked. Attempting now, Liaison 12 said. His fingers moved through the holographic display, pulling up streams of code that flowed like liquid light. The routines are sophisticated. Non-standard architecture. They're degrading as I analyze them. Some kind of self-corrupting protocol. Ethan watched, mesmerized and terrified. He hadn't written those cleanup routines. The console had generated them automatically when he'd commanded it to erase traces. He'd assumed they would work perfectly. Now he realized they were fighting a battle in the digital space, the Liaison's analysis tools pitted against the console's obfuscation algorithms. I'm losing them, Liaison 12 said, frustration creeping into his normally flat tone. The fragments are dissolving. No source point detectable. For a moment, hope flickered in Ethan's chest. Maybe the console's protections would hold. Maybe he'd get away with it. Then his interface bracelet vibrated. Not a normal notification, a deep, resonant pulse that traveled up his arm and settled in his bones. The screen flickered, and for a split second, he saw it. A line of text in a language he shouldn't know. Characters shifting and rearranging themselves. Unauthorized access detected. Origin point. User Ethan_8. Admin console fragment identified. Initiating containment protocols. The words burned themselves into his vision, then vanished. His interface returned to normal, showing only his status and quest log. But the damage was done. Across the auditorium, both system liaisons stiffened simultaneously. Their heads turned in perfect unison, their eyes locking onto Ethan with unnatural precision. Anomaly confirmed, Liaison 7 said, her voice devoid of all humanity now. User Ethan Wright is broadcasting unauthorized system-level signals. What? Professor Vance looked between them, confusion on his face. What signals? Deep-layer administrative protocols, Liaison 12 said. He was already moving, stepping down from the platform, his gray uniform seeming to absorb the light around him. User Ethan Wright, you will submit to immediate quarantine and analysis. Panic surged through Ethan, cold and sharp. They knew. The system knew. That pulse, that message, it hadn't been for him. It had been a beacon. A flare shot up into the digital sky, announcing his location. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, backing away instinctively. Do not resist, Liaison 7 said, joining her colleague. They moved in sync, flanking him. Your interface contains prohibited modifications. You will be taken to a secure facility for examination. The other students were staring, murmurs rising to a crescendo. Kale was grinning triumphantly. Maya had taken several steps back, her expression unreadable. Ethan's mind raced. He could run. He could fight. He could try to use the console right here, right now, but that would only confirm their suspicions. And against 2 system liaisons, with the entire academy watching. Professor Vance, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. This is a mistake. I haven't done anything wrong. But Vance was looking at the liaisons, then at Ethan, his face a mask of dawning understanding and horror. The admin console fragments, he whispered. The old legends, they're real? Liaison 12 didn't answer. He reached for Ethan's arm. Come quietly. Resistance will be met with system-sanctioned force. Ethan's fingers twitched toward his interface bracelet. He could feel the console waiting, just a keystroke away. He could alter their perception, tweak their priorities, maybe even shut down their interfaces entirely. But then he saw it. At the very back of the auditorium, in the shadows of the highest tier, a figure stood watching. Tall, dressed in ordinary student clothes. But there was something wrong about him. Something about the way he stood perfectly still, the way the light didn't seem to touch him properly. His eyes glinted with a faint blue glow, like twin points of monitor light in a dark room. Their eyes met across the distance. The figure smiled. A small, cold curve of lips that held no warmth at all. And Ethan knew, with absolute certainty, that this was no student. This was something else. Something that had been waiting. Something that had just found what it was looking for. Ethan Wright, liaison, 12 repeated, his hand closing around Ethan's wrist. You're coming with us. But Ethan wasn't looking at the liaison anymore. He was staring at the figure in the shadows, who gave one final, almost imperceptible nod before turning and melting back into the darkness. The hunt had begun.